Hey everybody, what's up? Trey Wingo here. Glad you're with us for a new venture that we are beginning on Trey Wingo Golf, and we'll be doing this every week starting next Tuesday live on YouTube and Twitter. It's Golf Live with Trey Wingo and the great Justin Ray, the Tiger Woods of golf researchers. Justin, how are you?
Doing great, Trey. Good to be here, man.
It's good to be with you. I'm really excited about this. We launched our pilot last week, and it got really good responses. So again, we're going to be doing this live every Tuesday, 4 o'clock Eastern, and we'll be taking your questions and comments during the show because we want you to be a part of the show as well. And we're just going to have a lot of fun talking about the game that we love and drives us crazy simultaneously, and that's the game of golf. And Justin, we're sort of in a transition right now on the PGA Tour. They've just completed their California swing, and now they head to Florida as they begin to ramp up towards the first major of the year. Obviously, still Augusta until something happens with the players. We'll get into that a little bit later. But the California swing, I think you have to say, was a resounding success from top to bottom for the PGA Tour. American Express Championship, Scotty Scheffler proves he's still Scotty Scheffler. You have the great story with Justin Rose at the Farmers Insurance Open. Brooks Koepka returns. Colin Morikawa comes back to the winner's circle at Pebble Beach. And then an unbelievable display by Jacob Bridgman to win the Genesis at Tiger's event at Riviera. This I don't know if there's a better way it could have gone better for the PGA Tour.
Oh, by the way, maybe the next breakout American star, Chris Gotterup, gets
Yeah,
Hawaii, backs it up by chasing down Hideki Matsuyama, who driver's a little wayward Sunday at Phoenix, and he comes up and gets his second win of the season. So vaulting himself into the world top five before his Masters debut, which is incredible, something that almost never happens. Lou Gobert got close a couple of years ago, but that's pretty unprecedented in terms of a vault up the world ranking that early in your career. I'm with you. I don't think it could have gone much better. I mean, I think I'm going to remember that Sunday at Pebble Beach for a long time, just thinking, is Scotty going to actually do this? The charge he
right.
went on.
Three Eagles.
Colin standing in that 72nd fairway while Bridgman made a mess of the last hole, and then Bridgman gets the redemption the next week at Riviera. That tournament was all but won at Riviera with about 12, 13 holes to play. We're thinking this is going to be a snoozer, and it gets down to one shot at the end. I mean, I don't think you could ask for much more. You got the top end winner with Scotty Scheffler getting win number 20 at the American Express, and it seemed to just get better each and every week. So it's very promising heading into the Florida swing. Arnold Palmer Invitational, always one of the best events on the schedule all year, coming up next week. And then we're down at TPC Sawgrass for the Players Championship. So it's off to a rip-roaring great start, and hopefully it can just continue through this Florida swing.
Let's focus in on Goddard here for a second because he got hot towards the end of last year, and there was really a momentum push to maybe see if he would make the Ryder Cup team. Obviously, that didn't happen, And at the time, I was like, okay, let's pump the brakes here. Like he's won an event, you know what I mean, and he's done well, but he's certainly now showing that all the promise that people sort of had around him and the idea of him playing on the Ryder Cup was not a fool's errand in any way, shape, or form.
No, not at all. And I think about the just different types of golf courses he's won on. Wildeye and TPC Scottsdale and the Renaissance Club are like three different points of the triangle when it comes to golf courses around the world and just their different traits. It's three really different places. And the other thing that's impressive is the guys he's gone up against and beating Rory at the Renaissance Club at the Scottish Open, hanging on to get that win. You stare down a Masters champion and world-class player, Hideki Matsuyama, who has owned TPC Scottsdale over the last 10 years or so, stare down him and beat him. It's pretty impressive, the collection of names that he's been able to take down this early in his career. Look, he is a ball speed monster. He can absolutely move it off the tee. Week in, week out on the PGA Tour, that's a very important thing that's going to help you score really well, especially on venues where, guys, it's really a birdie competition. You got to see how low can you go, like the Phoenix Open, TPC Scottsdale. This is a guy who I think we're going to be hearing about for a long time. I'm with you, and since I was with you on the Ryder Cup thing last year, I thought maybe it was too much too soon, and there were some other names that I thought were better fits and more reliable that ended up getting on the team. But man, that power would have been nice out there at Bethpage Black. That would have been a pretty valuable asset. So it's all hindsight, 2020 hindsight at this point. But he's turned himself into a world-class player, and I'm excited to see what he can do in the major championships this year. Third place at the Open last summer. People forget he had a great finish there. when Scotty Scheffler kind of ran away with it. That second flight below Scotty, he was right there. So going to be a big year, already a big year for Chris Gotterup, but to see him take his first walk around Augusta National is going to be a special thing.
Yeah, and we'll get into Ryder Cup discussions a little bit later on the show because there is some news out there that we need to address. But I want to also focus on Bridgman because, like, it did look, and you put out something on Twitter, I think, of players with the 6-stroke lead or more that trying to win their first PGA Tour event. A couple of guys made it, and I think one guy on that list faltered. And then Bridgman walks into that situation on Sunday. And like you said, it looked like this was going to be a walk in the park, but then here comes Rory and here comes everybody else. What does it say to you about the quality of player he is, considering, as you alluded to, what happened the week before? He was playing off the beach in Stillwater Cove at the 18th at Pebble Beach, and then was able to sort of put that mess up behind him and just basically focus on the task at hand and come away with his first PGA Tour win.
To me, there's almost 3 pages in this book that he wrote that week, winning at Riviera. The first two rounds, he putted it out of his mind. It was the most strokes gained putting through 2 rounds at Riviera than anyone had in some 20 years. It was unbelievable. You're thinking, okay, can he keep this hot putter up over the weekend in a signature event? Biggest names in the sport nipping at his heels. Saturday, he goes out and has the best strokes gained approach round ever at Riviera since they started tracking. So 2 completely different ways getting around the golf course to score really well. That's what I really take a lot from, is that you've got to be a phenomenally talented player on a great heater to lead a world-class field at Riviera by 6 shots through 54 holes. And then really, when you've got that size of a lead, it's so unique. You mentioned the numbers I sent out. I think he was the 4th player in 20 years to have that size of a lead. It was like Parker McLaughlin in Reno, Spencer Levine in Phoenix, which famously that was Kyle Stanley the week after he blew a big lead at Torrey Pines. He came back and won. There's one other instance on there. It just doesn't happen very often. And you're in a position where this guy was firing at flags on Saturday, doing it so well. And Sunday, you dial it back a little bit, maybe a little more conservative approach.
Right.
And he was able to make the right decisions down the stretch to hold on. It's worth noting that in those other previous 3 instances, Levine obviously got caught in pass, but the other 2 guys didn't win by 6 or more. It's not like they went on a big Tiger Sunday and won by a dozen. It was like a 2-shot win, a 1-shot win. So I think it speaks a lot, though. Those first 3 rounds speak to his potential and his capability. This guy was a stud at Clemson, was an all ACC player, wasn't necessarily on that top 2-3 Americans coming out of college in his class, but he was a really good college player. And it's good to see him break through and get a win. 4 top 20 finishes leading into the event, showing some good form, and then put it all together for those 3 days, and then was able to hang on Sunday.
And how cool was that moment when Tiger and him are walking down, and Tiger turns to him and says, "You got one on me." Like, for people that don't know, Tiger has never won. The Genesis, the LA Open, whatever. It's probably the one he wanted to win more than anyone. And the only time he really even was in serious contention, it wasn't at Riviera because of stuff going on at the course. It was a playoff to Billy Mayfair, and he lost in a playoff to Billy Mayfair, who had
only playoff he ever lost on the PGA Tour.
The only playoff loss in Tiger Woods' entire PGA Tour career was I can't remember what the sponsor was, but it's basically the LA Open, and they had to move it. And where was that played? I can't remember where that course was played. Do you remember where it was?
I don't think it was at Rancho. It was at somewhere.
Okay. Somewhere. Breaking news. Something Justin doesn't know off the top of his head of golf. Clip and save this forever. It's the only time it'll ever happen. But the idea that somehow, some way, Billy Mayfair not only denied Tiger of winning his home tournament, the now Genesis, then LA Open, and it's his only loss in a playoff with that ridiculous putting stroke. Remember, he'd take it back and swing it on the inside. No one should putt the way Billy Mayfair did it at that time. And somehow he beat Tiger Woods in a playoff.
No one should swing like Jim Furyk, the octopus falling out of the tree, as it was famously described. There you go, Valencia. That was on the tip of my head there, but didn't quite get it. So I'll take the L there. But yeah, no one should swing like Jim Furyk, octopus falling out of a tree, but he's a U.S. Open champion and a Hall of Famer. So that's the beauty of the sport. But yeah, other guys never won there. Jack Nicklaus. It's such a unique part of the sport where it's this iconic place, and you got great names like Hogan who have made their mark there over the years. But James Hahn has more victories at Riviera than Tiger Woods. Shout out to James Hahn, Gangnam Style on the Phoenix Open Green, but that's two very different careers, obviously. So, yeah, it's one of the unique things about Riviera and the history of it.
What did you make of the controversy around the redoing of the fourth hole? And Rory just saying he flat out hated it.
So I didn't, from a statistical standpoint, it was the most difficult green to hit on the PGA Tour in like 20 years. The year before, in
Right.
2024, the last time they had it there. So we're going to move the tee back a zillion yards and change the surface in front of it to where I didn't really. It felt like, why are we doing this? Is kind of what my reaction was to it. I think if you're going to have a par three that's that length, you've got to have an ability to run it up onto the green. Just because it is going to make, if you can't carry it 275, which I mean, virtually everyone on tour can do that. But from just a whole design perspective, I wasn't quite sure why they did it, and I thought it was necessary.
Yeah, it still played tough, so
Yeah.
whatever. So we, as we said off the top of the show, the California swing is now concluded, and we're heading to Florida with playing the Cognizant Classic this week. Previously known in many iterations, the Honda Classic years and years ago. But you mentioned something in our text conversations leading up to the show, that it's not just that we're moving east. We're changing the format in terms of what the players should expect when we go from the California swing to Florida. What did you mean by that?
The golf courses, in terms of levels of difficulty, get a little bit different. You saw incredibly low scoring at Pebble Beach, which this time of year, the Pro-Am setup we talked about is
Right.
set up for some lower scoring. Riviera didn't have all its defenses with the weather. When the wind gets going out there, it's a lot tougher. You look at the difficulty rankings of some of the courses on the Florida swing the last 6-7 years. Bay Hill and Innisbrook, home of the Valspar Championship, are always in the top 10. PGA National famously was one of those toughest courses, but the reseeding they've done is kind of taken a little bit of the bite away. And if it doesn't have the wind behind it, it's more susceptible to birdies. It's not the traditional, bear trap that that's going to be said ad nauseum on TV this week. But you look at some of the winning scores at Bay Hill over the last several years. Tyrrell Hatton won it at 4 under in 2020. Scotty won it at 5 under in 2022. Kitayama was, I think, 8 or 9 under a couple years ago. It's just a different level of difficulty. And then, of course, get to TPC Sawgrass, which is arguably the most balanced test of skill that we have on the PGA Tour in terms of what it demands from players. I just think it's a really proper ramping up of the level of golf and type of shots you got to hit as we lead into the season's first major at Augusta National.
So basically what the PGA Tour is doing is getting them prepared to play more difficult golf courses because Augusta is coming.
I would say that, yeah. And to a lesser extent, TPC Sawgrass, but to have those kind of, Innisbrook always plays tough. The Snake Pit's very difficult.
Yeah.
If the wind does get up this week at PGA National, it still will show a little bit of its teeth. And Bay Hill has some of the most, it's one of the courses with the most long iron shots because of those long, you think about those long par threes, those par fives you can go for a lot of them in two. So it demands a lot of, 3 irons and hybrids into greens. Typical of what you might see at a PGA Championship or US Open setup. So that's one of the more interesting things about these next few weeks coming up that really, gets me intrigued, because you get to see some of the world's best hit a couple more demanding approach shots.
Yeah, but make us look a little like more like us in some of those situations. But there's subtext, right? Because you just mentioned a lot of these tours, and they're in towns in Florida. They're not in big towns in Florida. And the rumor has it is that by the time we get to the Players Championship in a couple of weeks, the new format on the PGA Tour, a reduced schedule in all likelihood, will be announced. And it looks, and it's beginning to feel like a lot of these places where the PGA Tour might be playing the next few weeks might be on the chopping block when it's all said and done. And that's sort of something that's going to be hanging over, I think, these next 3 or 4 weeks on the PGA Tour. A lot of like, is this the last time we'll see these guys here?
It could be. And you think about the schedule even this year, where I keep wanting to say the Honda Classic, but the Cognizant Classic is
I get it.
Sandwiched between back-to-back signature events in California. By the way, we're coming up on back-to-back events. Players isn't signature, quote unquote, but it is must play for the world's best players. Obviously, these guys are going to play 7 weeks in a row. They're going to take a week off eventually, and that's what you see here at the Cognizant. I looked up 2014. Tiger Woods was still number 1 in the world. 7 of the top 9 players in the OWGR that week were in the field at the Honda Classic. Compare that to this week, where you got to go down, I think, into the 15s or 20s to find the highest rank. I think Shane Lowry's there and Billy Horschel's playing. It's not completely deft of names, but
Yeah.
it's certainly not in its halcyon days of a decade plus ago. So maybe when Honda departed, maybe that was a sign of things to come, and
Yep.
maybe this is headed down a tier or two on the PGA Tour's future vision board for where it's going to be on the schedule. But it's kind of already in that place when it's sandwiched between all these great big signature events. Guys have got to take a week off.
Yeah, and like for a guy like Billy, who obviously lives in Florida, it's an easy thing for him. But you're right. If we have all these other events that are big names on the bucket list, and these courses, you just it, and when you hear Brian Rolap say, "Hey, we need to go in big cities, like we need to be in bigger cities," when you see some of these places in these smaller towns in Florida, even though that's where the weather is, where you can play this time of year, you just wonder if they're going to be susceptible to that situation with all the other things that the PGA Tour is trying to balance in getting this thing where they see it not only makes more sense for the golfers, but also, hey, this is a money-making venture now.
Yeah, and listen, we talk a lot about the envy that other sports leagues have of the NFL and the scarcity and the kind of drip feed that kind of is provided throughout the year. You want scarcity on the PGA Tour, that means fewer tournaments, and that means some are going to get squeezed out. I mean, that's simple math. That's the way it's logically going to be. Invariably, this might be one of the places that kind of gets the raw end of it moving forward.
So we'll see what happens going there, and with some of these events. Again, nothing is set in stone. Which it's just a feeling, lack of anything else. When you sort of read the tea leaves and understand, sort of read the room, that's sort of where this is leaning. Okay, so that's one thing that's happening. Another thing popped up on the radar this week, and it's a very interesting discussion, I think, on a lot of levels, and it involves the greatest player that I've ever seen, Tiger Woods. What's his future at the Masters? And what's his future with the Ryder Cup? We'll get to that after the break. You are watching Golf Live with Trey Wingo and Justin Ray. All right, good people, I need a small favor from you here. If you're watching this and you're enjoying it, hit that like button on YouTube, repost it on X or Twitter, and leave a comment wherever you're listening from. It really does help the show grow. Leave a comment. I read them sometimes. I probably shouldn't, but I do. We all have guilty pleasures. And make sure you subscribe to both channels, Trey Wingo and Trey Wingo Golf, and hit the bell so you know when something new drops. We're building some really special things and doing it the right way, and I need you to stay on top of it. Do these things, and we'll all grow together. Duncan, just tell me when it's time to go. Okay, welcome back to Golf Live. Trey Wingo and Justin Ray as we continue on our new venture together. We're really excited about this. Again, if you're just watching this now for the first time, starting next week, Tuesday, 4 o'clock Eastern, this show will be live, streaming on YouTube and Twitter. And we want to hear from you, and we'll be taking your questions and comments in the super chat and making sure you guys are part of the show. So we just had the transition from the PGA Tour from the California swing. They're now in Florida, starting with the Cognizant Classic this week. But news came out this week, and it sort of dripped out a little bit before the Genesis, that there's a soft deadline coming up for Tiger Woods on a couple of fronts. First and foremost, to decide whether or not he thinks he's capable and healthy enough to play at Augusta. When we were taping the pilot for this show a couple of weeks ago, that news broke across Twitter, and it caught us both by surprise. And then Justin, at the press conference for the Genesis, which is Tiger's tournament, he did not shy away from it at all. He sort of doubled down on it a couple of times. It's beginning to look like, and you have to say this in parentheses and quotes because of all the setbacks he's had, but barring a health setback of some kind over the next few weeks, it looks like Tiger's going to try and give it a go at Augusta.
Yeah, give it a shot. I loved how he was playfully kind of coy with Trevor Immelman and Jim Nantz in the CBS booth. And they're like, is Augusta a possibility? And he's like, yeah. Now, does that mean I'm going to the dinner? Does that mean you're going to be able to walk around and shake hands on the range? Or does that mean I'm going to go try to tee it up and make the cut and compete? I mean, you'd imagine if he's out there and he thinks he's healthy enough to actually officially put a peg in the ground, that he's in a condition where he thinks he can and he's not going to go out there and embarrass himself. So it certainly looks like we're going to see him there. And I mean, I feel like this is something, it's a topic around this time of year, every second or third year for 15, 20 years now. Will he or won't he? It's Groundhog Day again. And, you know, you're wondering if he's going to play, but obviously it'd be amazing to see him out there. And I hope he's healthy enough to do it. At the same time, that's, like we talked about last week, a super demanding walk, one of the most demanding in the sport. And you worry about some of obviously the enormous amount of injuries and rehabs he's gone through over the years.
Yeah. And for people that don't understand or are not quite, I mean, it is, Tiger did this in when I think it was Scotty's first Masters in 2022, right? He came back and unbelievably made the cut. With his first tournament back in a long time from the back surgery. So nothing would surprise us, but it does seem like that's a lot of demand physically on him in a very short amount of time.
And to have not seen him play competitively in so long as well. I mean, he's alluded to, I think he's absolutely going to tee it up in a PGA Tour Champions event at some point this year, because he's now finally mentioned the allure of not having to walk, being able to take a cart on that tour would be huge. So I don't know if the region or if the Insperity Classic outside my hometown of Houston is the proper Masters warm-up or post or PGA Championship warm-up or whatever, but it certainly is an intriguing possibility for a guy who, look, hitting the shots is not the biggest challenge. It's the physical toll of just getting out there and walking 72 holes.
Yeah. Obviously it would bring an energy if Tiger's in the field. It's just different. And, people, there's a generation now that didn't grow up the way you and I did consuming golf and watching Tiger do all these ridiculous things, 7 to play at the Pebble Beach and Pro-Am in 2000 and not even making a playoff, beating Matt Gogol by 2 strokes is, just patently ridiculous. So you get a lot of push, and I do, and I'm sure you do too, when we talk about Tiger in these ways. Oh, why do you guys hang on to that? Why do you guys do that? Because he did shit that nobody ever did before. Like that.
And no one will ever do again.
And no one will ever do again. So every year on Tiger's birthday, Justin Ray pins the Tiger stats to his Twitter profile, and they are objectively ridiculous and hilarious at the same time. And you think about it.
I'm still trying to come up with new ones. Yeah, I still do every year because it's a limitless fountain of absurdities. And one of my favorite little things of Scotty's last several years is that, it ends up becoming a Tiger Woods stat. When I'm looking something up about Scotty, it's opened last year, Scotty's converted 9 consecutive outright 54-hole leads. I think Tiger
which sounds great.
Tiger did 37 in a row.
37 times.
Some insane number.
Straight. 37 straight.
Yeah, it doesn't even sound like a real, it's not the same sport. So, look, I understand people with a little bit of fatigue or a lot of fatigue there, but you got to kind of understand, where you and I are coming from in terms of, being able to have experienced it as a fan for all those years in the peak years and the big days.
The only way I can explain it to people is let's say you binged a TV show, right? And someone else is watching it for the first time. And you're like, I wish I could go back and watch this stuff for the first time because it was so good. And that's sort of the way I relate when I try to tell people, you don't understand. There was nothing that was impossible for him. Did he win the Johnny Walker Open once? Did he trail Ernie by 9 in the final round on Sunday?
Something like that, yeah.
And he freaking won the thing. It's just, so anyway, that's why he's a part of, that's why we created the Tiger Golf League, right? That's why he's part of the competition committee. That's why he's talked about in these tones, because the players saw it and they want to be a part of that in any way, shape, or form that they can be. And if it's playing next to him or with him in the same field at Augusta, they think about it the way we think about it. Now, some of the fans may not, but just understand you don't have their perspective. And that's why he's still such a looming figure on the PGA Tour. Now, the other thing, which is really interesting to me, is the idea that they want to know sooner rather than later, the PGA of America does, whether Tiger Woods will be the next captain at Adare Manor in Ireland in 2027. And on a first blush, considering all the things we just said, well, of course, Tiger Woods should be the captain. Then you do the data, right? And you do the numbers. And there's only one player in the history of United States golf that has lost more Ryder Cup matches than Tiger Woods, and that's Phil Mickelson. And I'm sure a lot of people, I mean, a lot of people inside the game obviously know that, but I'm talking about casual golf fans or fans that, oh, hey, I know Tiger did this and Phil did this. I think that stat would absolutely shock a lot of people, that the two players in United States history with the most losses ever in the Ryder Cup were the two players of the greatest players of their generation, Phil Mickelson and Tiger Woods. So when we talk about the captaincy, obviously Tiger is an aura, is a presence. But when you look at those numbers, Justin, what do you think of the idea of Tiger Woods being a Ryder Cup captain?
Kind of put it into two buckets. One, being having the ability to lose the most Ryder Cup matches in history on the U.S. side, as Phil and Tiger did, is a testament to being really good for a really long time because you're
Correct.
on a lot of Ryder Cup teams. I also think that there's an element in golf where the individualistic focus is something that can separate you from the competition, and that doesn't always necessarily carry over to team golf where maybe you're setting up a shot that's going to be better for your teammate if you're playing foursomes. These guys are on their own in their own game, and Tiger's singularly focused famously for so many years. I think maybe that kind of contributed to some of the failures maybe at the Ryder Cup over the years. That and Europe has had the team thing down pat for a very long time, and there's a lot of deeper cultural things in terms of the two teams we could talk about. But I think as a captain, it's I've heard for a long time it's his when he wants it for as long as he wants it. It's his
Correct.
job.
Yeah.
Whenever he's ready, he's Tiger Woods. He's the Ryder Cup captain if he wants it. I wonder, he's talked a lot about the number of hours he's committed to the new PGA Tour, the policy board, and what the tour is going to look like moving forward. It sounds like he has an incredible amount of input on that. Does he want to do it on the road? I mean, I always for years thought he would want to be a road captain. We haven't won a road Ryder. United States hasn't won a road Ryder Cup since 1993.
94. Yeah. Belfry.
Pretty much none of the team will have been alive at that point when they go tee it up there in 27. There's a lot of questions there. I think the demand on his time is probably the biggest one. And is he ready to kind of completely take on that ceremonial role that, look, we've seen him as, you've got to have seen him in that role for a while now after, all the different surgeries and injuries and stuff to an extent. But is he ready to take on that perception that he's not going to be, a player competing in it? Because when he was the captain at the 2019 President's Cup, he was a playing captain. He was playing alongside Justin Thomas. And famously in some of those team matches, that's going to be a completely different approach, but it's going to be interesting to see. I'm rooting for it to happen because I think it would be the best thing for that Ryder Cup in terms of eyeballs and drawing attention and it being, a big dramatic thing. But I wonder what kind of captain he would be and if it would be the right choice for the U.S. team.
Right. Let's just do your thing. Let's just look at the numbers, right? 37 matches, his overall record 13, 21, and 3. In singles, he was great. Won 4, lost 2, have 2. But when we get to the bugaboo that has been the problem for the United States, it's never the singles, it's the team play. In foursomes, 4, 9, and 1. In alternate shots, yeah. Foursomes, 4, 9, and 1. In four balls, which you think really, I mean, that's just you kind of playing your own ball, right? You'd think that would be something that he would excel at. 5, 10, and 0. So, I mean, the foursomes I get, right? Because there's a lot of weird stuff that goes on with alternate shot and who you want to pair with. And, Hal Sutton infamously paired Phil and Tiger together at the Ryder Cup at, not Oak Hill. Was it Oak Hill? Yeah, it was Oak Hill, right? It was Oak Hill, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah. And that was a complete disaster. And then there's, what ball do you play? All this kind of stuff. But the 4-ball record, to me, I don't understand because that's just you going out there and trying to be Tiger Woods. And that didn't translate for some reason.
Yeah. And look, it mirrors a lot of the recent, problems that the U.S. Ryder Cup team has had. I mean, alternate shot has been a massive issue. Not to promote myself in any way, but the U.S.
Please do.
U.S. Solheim Cup team got beat in alternate shot 6 straight Solheim Cups. The last 2 were plus 6 points, 11-5. So just throwing that out there. But if there needs to be a wholesale type of change in terms of, getting the guys more unified and bringing them together. And look, there's so many different things that they need to do institutionally to kind of get better as a Ryder Cup team. I wonder if, Tiger being there, is he committed to making that sort of, wholesale change, and or is it going to be more of the status quo, which, we kind of saw last year in terms of their approach at Bethpage?
Well, it's interesting, right? Because there's no question that his presence would be felt by the team. But there's also something to coaching that I think is very problematic for great athletes. Great athletes, when you ask them, no matter what sport it is, whether it's golf, whether it's basketball, whether it's, tennis or whatever, you ask them, how did you do that? And a lot of times they'll say, well, I just did it. There aren't a lot of incredible superstar athletes that went on to be really good coaches in their chosen profession. In fact, the only one that I can possibly think of would be Larry Bird when he was the head coach at the Indiana Pacers. He really was good at it. But, Magic Johnson was god awful when he was the head coach of the Lakers for that short stint. Most really good coaches are marginal to average players who had to fight, scratch, and claw to get good enough to hang around for a little bit. And look, no one's saying Tiger doesn't put in work. I mean, nobody put in more work. He was also unbelievably gifted. And sometimes I think it's harder for those guys to turn into this other thing than being just, like you said, the singular focus it requires for you to be great. And it's not diminishing what his presence would be for me, as opposed to, could he assume that role without getting royally pissed off, at people that aren't doing things the way he wants them done?
Why can't you hit that 210-yard squeezy cut stinger?
Exactly. Just do that. Why didn't you do that here?
Think about the analogy I always think about how many catchers turn into managers in Major League Baseball. And a catcher is so many different roles on the field in terms of managing the game. I think I was a pitcher in high school of absolutely no regard, but I think of all the different times the catcher comes out to me and he's as much managing my, mental side as he is, what pitch we're going to throw next. And I think about, there's all these different roles that a catcher has to play on a baseball team. And it kind of translates later on to kind of being able to step into that managerial role. So, it's very rarely, Ken Griffey Jr. or, Frank Thomas, or I don't know, just name any Hall of Fame player that turns into a great baseball manager. It's usually, Mike Scioscia.
Exactly. Right. And you take a look at, I know people say, well, Jack was a Ryder Cup captain. Stop. Like that. The Ryder Cup, when Jack was playing at it, it ain't this. Okay. No. That was literally a friendly exhibition, and it was a walk in the park. We never lost. We didn't get our asses handed to us on a regular basis. And oh, by the way, no one really cared. Like, let's be honest, the Ryder Cup then was just, oh, did that happen? And now people wait 2 years and froth at the mouth. It is a totally different dynamic. And I'm not saying he couldn't do it, but to your point, the bigger issue is, does he want to commit that amount of time to something that he may himself say, I'm not sure if I'm the right guy for this?
Yeah. And, if he does choose to do something and he's totally committed to it, I have no doubt that he'll, throw himself completely into it. My question is just, with so many other things going on, trying to rehab and still trying to be a player, all the stuff with the PGA Tour board, is this something he wants to take on right now?
Yeah. And then there's the other side of the coin. If it's not Tiger, then who is it? And a lot of momentum is being bandied about. And when I talked to Justin Thomas on the podcast, he was like, I would love for Keegan to come back. And even Justin admitted, said, that would be a hard sell to a lot of people. But I feel like because of the work he put in, and maybe he made some wrong decisions and all that kind of stuff, and the other guys were just better, that maybe he deserves a second chance. And I'm not in any way morally opposed to that. But again, if I'm thinking about it to the golf consumer, that would be a very difficult sell.
Yeah, it would be a tough sell. And then look, there's not too many captains that have been able to come back multiple times. It doesn't happen all that often. It did many years ago. I know Luke Donald's basically established a residency at this point, and it'd be an upset if they move on to anybody else. Team Europe coming up in 2027. I that would be a tough sell. I've heard Stuart Sink's name. I've heard even, kind of Gary Woodland. You're kind of getting into that age range, but a lot of the candidates you'd think would be, Phil Mickelson, guys like that. Obviously,
I think they're
not part of the picture.
I don't think Phil's part of that picture.
No, it is not at this point. No, but I'm just saying like that. The names start getting a little bit. You've already gone through Zach Johnson, Steve Stricker, those kind of names. It would certainly be interesting if they went back to the well and went with Keegan again. And certainly nobody cares more about it than he does. I know he was devastated by the result at Bethpage, but it's Tiger's job if he wants it. Bottom line.
Yeah, Keegan said at some point, I don't know if I'll ever get over it. I don't know if I'll ever get over losing it. So, I mean, maybe you give him a shot at redemption. But
appreciate and love that honesty. Love that honesty from him.
Yeah. But if you get that other shot, you better win it, right? Like you better win it. If you're going out on that limb and you're bringing Keegan back, and I love Keegan. He's done a lot of good things for golf in New England when I was living up there full time. And if you get that shot again, though, you better win it. Like you can't do that again.
We haven't won on the road 3+ decades.
Go for it.
Go get it.
See what happens. Knock it out of the park. Oh my gosh. All right. Lots more to come on this show, including some really interesting things that have been happening on the LPGA Tour and a really cool moment on the DP World Tour this past week. We'll get into that as we continue Golf Live with Trey Wingo and Justin Ray. We're coming right back. Hey, just a reminder, Golf Live with me, Trey Wingo, is live every Tuesday now at 4 o'clock Eastern. That's 1 o'clock Pacific and 11 a.m. Hawaiian. It's me and the great Justin Ray, who is the Tiger Woods of golf researchers, breaking down everything happening in golf each week across the globe. We'll also have guests, and we're reacting to your questions in real time. So if you want to actually be a part of the conversation instead of just watching clips later, join us live Tuesdays, 4 o'clock Eastern, Trey Wingo Golf on YouTube with the great Justin Ray. Welcome back. We are live again, ladies and gentlemen, on Golf Live. Trey Wingo and Justin Ray. And for those that don't know, Justin not only is a wizard when it comes to the PGA Tour, he's a wizard across all tour events across the globe. And as you alluded to, you've done a lot of work with the LPGA and the Solheim Cup, so you're very familiar with what's going on there. And I think we can safely say it wasn't the best start to the LPGA Tour when they had the amateurs go out and play in the Pro-Am, and they didn't let the pros play because it was cold. And
it was
that was an own goal of own goals, right? And at least the commissioner owned up to it on some level, correct?
Yeah. It was one bad choice, and then it snowballed into something that kind of got out of control and ended up kind of putting a scar on that first event of the season. But from that kind of poor start, you end up Nelly Korda ends up getting the win. Didn't win at all last season on the LPGA Tour,
which is amazing, by the way. That seems like a made-up stat. Nelly Korda did not win last year.
And until about the last 3 weeks of the season, she had a better scoring average and better strokes gained total per round than she did in her season where she won 7 times. So it just shows you how golf can be really fickle, and week in, week out, different situations can come out where you can play great and just not win. But the first time ever since the Rolex rankings were created that the world number 1, Gino Titakun, world number 2, Nelly Korda, win the first 2 events of the season. Gino wins in Thailand last week. Huge victory in front of her home fans. Great crowds out there. The crowds at the events in Asia are always spectacular, and they were there. We've got another great event this week in Singapore. Throw in the fact Charlie Hull won on the LET, and there's some very excited people on the LPGA. It's a total counter to last year, where I think it was like the first 26 events of the season. There was no repeat winner. We went till mid-October until Gino won a second time. World number 1. We got one a second time and broke that streak. It was the longest in the history of the tour. So exciting to come off and get that momentum. Some big names. I talked to you a little bit on the pre-chat about Gino and how she's really one of the most intriguing players in the sport, man or woman to me. Unquestionably, the last 18, 24 months is the best player in the world. on the women's side, does not yet have a major championship. 5 top 5 finishes, hasn't yet broken through. I would put the over under this year of majors 1.5. I really think she's that talented. She would have won the Evian last year if it weren't for some crazy miracle shots down the stretch by Grace Kim. So yeah, I'm a big Gino Titacun fan, and I think she's going to have a big year ahead of her. Excited to see her break through and get a win. And it's going to be a great event this week in Singapore. If you can stay up for a little cocktail golf late at night and catch that a little bit, I highly encourage it.
Where are we on the LPGA tour? Like, obviously, we need that tour to resonate a little more, right? What do you think are the necessary steps that we can get there to get the LPGA tour a little more mainstream to people?
I think just if you get a continuity of stars and winners, I mean, I think we were kind of getting that a little bit with Nelly a couple years ago, where she's at the Met Gala, she's at these celebrity type events that go beyond the golf course, and she's excellent. A really good interview when she gives it, and just kind of an excellent presence. I get that a lot from American fans, that they wish there were more American success stories on the tour. But the truth of the matter is it's a global league. And so what we see the tour as in the United States isn't necessarily the end all be all product that it is around the world. I mean, it's incredibly popular in all these different Asian countries, really well attended. I think there's some things that are going to be really helpful to the tour this year. One, the first major of the season, the Chevron Championship, is moving from suburban Houston to Memorial Park, where they play the Houston Open every year. I think that's going to be much better for the fan experience, and I think the crowds are going to at least triple in terms of size, because it was really difficult to get to the Chevron the last couple of years. And that's going to be a big help. And look, I just think the parity of last year and everybody like a different winner every week. It was cool if you're someone who's kind of a hardcore golf fan, but that's a difficult storyline to kind of latch onto if you're a casual LPGA fan. So it's good to see the stars succeed early on. I'm excited to get that first major of the season. It's sandwiched between the Masters and the PGA on the men's schedule. But yeah, there's so many unbelievably talented athletes. I guarantee if your experience is like mine, the more you get into the tour, the more you're going to love it.
Yeah, stars demand our attention, right? And people always say they hate dynasties and they hate franchises until you realize that's what people watch. People, it's like the NCAA tournament. People always say, "Oh, I love the upsets." Yeah, but not in the Final Four. You want them in the first round.
You don't want to see High Point in the Elite Eight, right?
Yeah. Exactly. Don't tell me you want Elon University somehow making it to the Final Four. And my daughter went to Elon. No disrespect. I'm just saying that's not the way this works. Okay, so it is good for the LPGA that those stars are winning early, and it gives them some attention besides the thing that they stumbled out of the gate with. There's also was a really cool moment on the DP World Tour this year was the Kenyan Open, and one player in particular, and the way they were able to finagle their way into the weekend.
Yeah, Naroje Kabugu. I really hope I got his name right. I practiced it about
nailed it.
Times. Got it. Of the 18 Kenyan players at the Magical Kenyan Open, which has one of the best trophies in golf, by the way. It's a rhinoceros. Yeah. It's awesome.
It's very cool.
Yeah, he's one shot off the lead playing the last hole on Friday. Sticks his approach to like 6 feet, makes the eagle putt, easily clears the cut line. The only player from Kenya to make the cut at the Kenyan Open this year. Great support on that last screen. Crowd goes wild. It was an awesome moment. And look, it was such a great, we talked about the authenticity that emitted from the Anthony Kim win on Live a couple of weeks ago. This was another authentic, great moment where This is a sport that's not super popular in this country. It's not big. But to have that national pride in this kid breaking through, making the cut on a third biggest tour in the world, second biggest tour in the world, it was an awesome moment, and it was probably my favorite moment in golf all last week.
Yeah, it was an incredible second shot in there, and then still got to make the putt. Now, granted, he cleared it because a birdie would have done it, but it was still a very cool moment to see him finish the thing off. And by the way, you mentioned Liv. I'm sure people think, why aren't you talking about Liv this week? They didn't play. All right. There's no tournament. So I'm to that point, though, I'm really curious, Justin, to see about what the Anthony Kim moment meant for them as a tour and how they might try and capitalize on that. I don't even know if that's something that's in their ethos, but we do need to talk about the fact that there's been a new cash influx on that. And we'll get to that after the break on our final segment of Golf Live. Stay with us. So if you consider yourself more of an audio person, look, I totally get it. The Trey Wingo network is now available on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, etc., 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 wherever you get your podcasts. You can listen in the car, gym, on a walk, wherever you carve out that little space where you need to just get away from everything. Same conversations, just without the camera. Hey, subscribe across the platforms and share it with your family and friends. Follow the Trey Wingo network. All right, everyone, we're back live, and I have messed up my screen, so everyone's tiny right now. So we'll figure it out as we go along.
You found a way to shrink my head. It's a miracle.
Well, listen. Anything for you, Justin. I think that's the way we're approaching this. Anything for you. But there was news on the live scene that there was another cash investment of some $300 million by the PIF, the Saudi Public Investment Fund, basically sort of doubling down on the tour in wake of the Anthony Kim moment. So there's been a lot of turnover at Live over the last couple of weeks that we've seen executives leave, and some of them have been replaced, some haven't. With all the defections back to the PGA Tour, there were some wonderings of how long are the Saudis willing to lose billions of dollars, because that's sort of what's happened. But then they get this fresh injection of cash. What does that say to you about where the tour is going to be for a while?
So when I saw that news, it made me take a step back and remember that for all the different perceptions people might have of how Live is going, how it's doing, what their next steps are going to be, outwardly, they've always maintained the same face. They've always said the same thing, like, we're committed to this product. We're committed to getting world ranking points, which they did get. We're committed to growing the tour in whatever way we can, attracting young stars, the Michael Lasasso, David Puig a couple years ago. They've always kind of maintained the same outward facing, this is what we're doing. This is our goal, no retreat. So whatever the perception might be from the public, which is justified, they can have whatever perception they want. People within the golf industry, whatever criticisms they might have, they've always kind of maintained that they're still on this same path. So perhaps they are. I don't know what the internal mechanisms and changes are going to kind of symbolize or mean moving forward. But look, they've always kind of maintained that face going forward, that this is what we're doing. We're committed to this tour, making it as great as possible. And look, they've evolved a lot. Look, they've changed, whether it's shorts or going to 72 holes. They've consistently kind of moved what their goal is. But I think outwardly facing, it just was a reminder to me that they've never really changed what their message is to the public.
The only other thing that's interesting is that they're looking for investors in these teams now, and I think that's an indication, to me anyway, that that's the Saudi government and the PIF saying, hey, we can't do this forever, right? Yeah. Because the whole premise of the Live thing was it's not a business model, because it's not a sustainable business model. They've lost billions of dollars already and haven't found a way to turn a profit. So it was never about making it a sustainable business model. It was about trying to use Live to get where they wanted to be, which is a power seat at the table. But now it does feel like the only shift you can sort of tangibly say is, we're not doing this forever. We're looking for people to invest in our product. And that, to me, is, I don't say it's a seismic shift, but it's certainly a shift that is worth noting about how this thing is going to continue going forward.
Yeah, it was never going to be an infinite supply of, we're just going to keep pumping money into this and not getting anything back. At the end of the day, whether it's a profit or some other return on investment, like you said, the seat at the table, a different perception of their country moving forward, whatever that may be, they want to get a return on this investment at some point. And whether that's financial or otherwise, I mean, there's a limit to what they're going to be able to pump into it. The limit's very high, but there's still a limit on that number.
We don't like to have that limit, I think is what we're saying.
I don't live among that credit limit. Not the world I exist in.
See, I didn't even know you put live in that sentence. So it was very well done on your part. Nicely done. Okay, so it's going to be an interesting week. We have the tour heading to Florida, and we are expecting some big news sooner rather than later on what the tour is going to be like, what Tiger's future is going to be like, not only at Augusta, but potentially the Ryder Cup. And we will be here to talk about it all when all those things come down. So once again, thanks for watching. For Justin and Ray, I'm Trey Wingo, and we'll see you next week on Golf Live. Again, we'll be live Tuesday, 4 o'clock Eastern on YouTube and streaming on Twitter as well. And we want your questions and comments. We want to make you guys part of the show. We want to answer your questions in real time. So please, when we're up there live, drop suggestions and questions in the chat, and we will get them on the air. Until next week, Justin, we'll see you then, bud.
Yes, sir.